Hello again. Today I wanted to discuss how God can use evil, whether sinful man or Satan himself, for his purposes and yet be vindicated from any charge of sin or evil himself. Some, being alarmed that God uses evil for his purposes, have determined to use language to get around this difficult doctrine by saying that God allows or God permits rather than God does or God wills. The problem with this language is that it runs contrary to what we read in Scripture. Let us take, for example, the story of Job. In the first chapter, we learn that Satan comes to appear before God to receive his orders, just as the angels do. And while we may declare that God permitting Satan to afflict Job is indeed a permission, we read something stronger than a mere permission in the words of Job. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Thus we can clearly see that God was the author of that trial, of which Satan and wicked robbers were merely the instruments. Hence we can also say that whatever men or Satan himself devise, God holds the helm and makes all their efforts contribute to the execution of his judgments. We see this again in the story of Ahab, the king of Israel. He wanted to make war against Ramoth-Gilead, and was encouraged by the king of Judah to seek for God's counsel. Roughly 400 prophets in unison all stated that Ahab would be victorious. But there was one prophet, Micaiah, who told the king otherwise. Micaiah then proceeded to share with the king his word from God. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne with all the multitudes of heaven standing around him on his right and on his left. And the Lord said, who will entice Ahab into attacking Ramoth-Gilead and going to his death there? One suggested this, another that. Finally, a spirit came forward, stood before the Lord and said, I will entice him. By what means? The Lord asked. I will go out and be a deceiving spirit in the mouths of all his prophets, he said. You will succeed in enticing him, said the Lord. Go and do it. So now the Lord has put a deceiving spirit in the mouths of all these prophets of yours. The Lord has decreed disaster for you. Hence, in this passage, we can clearly see that God chose to blind Ahab and cause him to infatuate over war in order to bring about God's own judgments against Ahab. Finally, we need look only to the death of the Son of God to see that God does not merely permit or allow, but wills and decrees. In the book of Acts we read, indeed, Herod and Pontius Pilate met together with the Gentiles and the people of Israel in this city to conspire against your holy servant Jesus, whom you appointed. They did what your power and will had decided beforehand should happen. Indeed, in this very same book, we read Peter declaring to the people of Israel that Jesus was handed over to you by God's deliberate plan and foreknowledge, and you, with the help of wicked men, put him to death by nailing him to the cross. The cause of brevity does not permit me to continue with story after story of how God uses all things, including the wicked and evil schemes of man and of Satan, to accomplish his good and benevolent purposes. Therefore, let us, who by the clear declaration of Scripture and who know God to be truly sovereign, shy back no longer from describing the activity of God not as mere permissions, but of acts of providence and will. I know that this is a tough doctrine, and hence the reason so many use softer language to describe the activity of God on the earth. But we need not try to excuse God from evil or lessen God's absolute control over everything in order to comfort ourselves concerning his goodness. God used the evil actions of men and Satan to bring about the most evil act ever committed, the suffering and crucifixion of Jesus. Seeing Jesus on the cross seems as though even God is evil and evil has won. But God willed and used all this evil to bring about the very salvation of mankind. Hence, when you suffer and feel that evil surrounds you, know that there is a good God who loves you. And if he can use the crucifixion of Jesus for such gracious and good purposes, he can use whatever evil you're facing for the same. In other words, When you cannot perceive the grace of His hand, you can trust the grace of His heart. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Soli Deo Gloria, that is, to God alone be the glory.